Okay, so here we are in part 2, and how do we make something look a little bit more realistic by adding some additional detail, and how do we make something that's not a very basic geometric shape look like it's also following those rules of perspective? So the detail is always the most important. We started by making the thicker lines. So if you vary your weight of your line, so essentially that's just making a bold line, and things that are a little closer to you, it just kind of creates a little bit more emphasis on what's in front of you, and that's also going to enhance that illusion. Now, you would also see the very front. If I were standing in these railroad tracks, I would also see the very front. So I have that vertical line drawn here, but I'm going to add in a little bit more detail on the front of that railroad track as well. And this part is going to be shaded a little bit darker than the front because my sun is hitting the top of that tide, not the bottom. So I'm going to add in a little bit of value here, again, to enhance that. So I'm using the weight of my line. So is my line thick or thin? And then also adding some shade to just give that illusion even more of an effect. So I'm shading this in one tie at a time. And you only really have to do this for what's kind of near you in the foreground or what's at the beginning of the composition, because again, as things go back into the distance, they're going to get smaller and closer together. And also that shading is going to become a little bit more blended or muted. You can even shade along your ruler to just kind of help guide that pencil. And just define the outsides of those tides a little bit too. The other thing I can do with shading is the railroad tracks, the rails themselves, the inside of the rail would have a little bit of more value than the top of the rail, again, because your light source is coming in from the top. So I'm just adding a little bit of value. Again, if I want to create a little bit more emphasis on what's in the foreground, just to focus that in, I'm going to really change the weight of that line, make that line a little bit thicker, a little bit bolder in the front, in the foreground. So that way, it really makes things pop out, but it also makes things look more like an optical illusion. And if you're drawing all of your lines to go back into the distance, then you're going to be good. If you want to add in the railroad ties themselves, again, the more detail you have, you could even add wood grain, the better your overall product is going to be. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of patience, but it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it in the end.